So what are you saying, people? Is another episode of the social worker and the mentor. Obviously, guys, I'm not here in the studio. I'm at home recording. But listen, we have a fantastic guest overseas. Yeah? Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
Hey, so my name is Catherine. I am a social worker based out of the US. I'm in California and I've been social working since 2009. So it's been a while. And most of my experience has mostly been in medical social work, but recently transitioned into private practice, teletherapy, also some entrepreneurship, and a podcast. So I am just excited to be here.
So what I want to ask, Catherine, before we go straight in, and guys, listen, yeah, you should see right now popping up on your screen, right now, right there, yeah, the Social Worker and the Mentor podcast, but also Catherine's Instagram. Catherine, plug yourself, plug yourself. Where can the social workers find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Social Workers Rise. I'm also on LinkedIn, Catherine Moore, LCSW, and I have another organization called Rise Directory, which is for clinical supervisors, primarily in the United States, but I want to expand that, to come over to the UK too.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. So, Catherine, I want to ask you, what made you start the podcast? What was your motivation to start the podcast?
So that is a great question. And in short, I was going to leave social work because I was just fed up with social work. I was done. I was about to enter my second round of burnout. And I'm like, this is just not what I had envisioned for myself, not what I want for my career, for my family. Because burnout affects us on so many different, on
So many
every level.
levels. Yeah.
And so I was doing some research. I'm like, what else can I possibly do? And I decided nothing really because I just love social work so much. And I'm like, I'm not going to leave it. So I might as well start changing the narrative. And starting a podcast was really like the simplest way that I saw to do that because I wanted to connect with other people and see, is it just me? Is it my problem? Are there other people out there who are having these same experiences? And also to highlight some of the amazing stories of social workers who are out in the field. Like we're the most big-hearted, empathetic people you'll ever meet.
Absolutely.
And we have stories. Like we have a lot of really great stories. So I use the platform as a way to highlight those stories.
And what I wanted to ask, Catherine, is that in America, I mean, in the United Kingdom, a lot of social work is quite frowned upon. As you know, a lot of people think we just come in, we just take children away. Is that the same in the States? Do the public have the same view of social workers in America? Is it absolutely the same?
It's very similar, unless you've worked with a social worker before.
Right.
So I have had a lot of people come up to me, and especially in the medical setting, if I tell them, oh, I'm a hospice social worker, they'll say, oh my gosh, when my dad was on hospice, like the social worker was amazing.
Yeah.
So it helps that we're in these different settings. And I think the awareness is starting to increase around who we are, but there's still like if we're starting down here at the bottom, we're like maybe here. Like we got a long way to go.
Yeah. Because you know what, to be honest with you, in the United Kingdom, I mean, many people, we're quite disliked. I mean, a lot of people feel we come in and take children away. And I think, just kind of seeing your podcast and what you do, I mean, as well as my own podcast that I do with Rob, we're trying to really educate people about the work that we do, that actually there's a lot of groundwork that goes into social work, that we're not just trying to come in, we're actually really trying to come in and change people's lives for the positive. I mean, I always say to a lot of people that social work is very much a selfless profession. I think if you want to become a social worker, most people go and say, I want to actually make a change. I want to do something positive. So it's just quite interesting to see kind of like, how it's viewed in America. But in terms of like child protection services, I mean, what's your experience there? I mean, on the front line, I mean, has it been difficult? What are the caseloads like in America? In America, what is it like for being a social worker in the States?
So full disclosure, I've never worked in CPS.
You haven't? You never done CPS?
No, no, this is a
Right.
stereotype. No.
Bro, I automatically assumed that you did CPS straight away. I feel like every social worker in the US has done CPS.
Never done CPS. I straight started in hospice.
Right. And what's that been like working in hospice?
It was amazing. I loved it. So,
Mm,
I mean, I can talk what I've seen about CPS,
yeah.
generally speaking, right? So I do know social workers who work like in California and New York and kind of all over the country. It's really high caseloads,
Yeah.
really, really difficult and challenging cases. And people feel like they're not really equipped to handle all of it. And so I
Mm,
think that because we stick the newest social workers with some of the toughest cases, it leads to a high level of burnout, imposter syndrome, feeling like maybe this isn't the place for me. And
mm,
they leave, like they leave really quick. And so that's why part of the other benefit of the podcast, like that you're doing too, is just educating like what are our options, right? You don't have to just go to CPS, right?
yes.
I have a list of like 100 different social work jobs that you can do. And
What I wanted,
so
what I wanted to ask you, Catherine, because you made a point in terms of, you know, the new social workers who come in and then they take on kind of like the most complex cases. So
yeah,
in the UK, we've got the ASYE program. So as soon as you qualify, get your degree, you have to do like a newly qualified program for like 12 months where the social workers get a protected caseload. So they may not take on, so they'll take on cases, but we build them up. What's the equivalent in the US? Do you have a similar kind of, you just get thrown in?
sink or swim.
What?
I mean, as far as I know, I've never heard of that type of program. I think it's genius. But we do I don't know, we do internships. So, like, as part of our
Right,
graduate program, we do
right.
internships. That's it. That's like the most controlled thing we get. And then once we get our degree, like, sink or swim.
So then, but then, are you not setting up the social workers to fail then? Because I mean, in the UK, I mean, we feel that best practice is that actually you need to obviously have that kind of protected learning space with somebody being over you at least to kind of make sure that your caseload and you're learning and you're growing. But just to go straight in, I don't think that's good. I mean, how do the social workers feel about that?
That's why we leave.
Oh, for crying out loud.
This is the problem. This is what I'm saying. Like it's not set up for us to
No.
succeed. And I love that you guys have that. So then you're saying in the UK, your first year out of graduate school, you have a limited caseload. And
Yeah,
I'm guessing you're under close supervision.
yeah, we are. So when you have your it's called assess social worker year in employment, ASYE, you would start off with a small caseload. So within the first kind of like 3 to 4 months, you should be having regular supervision with your line manager. And you don't get child protection cases. So you will start with maybe child in need cases. Then as you get a bit more experience after maybe your 6 months to your 12, your 11 to 12 month, then you get child protection because you need to be ready. You need to
Yep.
be ready to be dealing with those kind of complex cases, those families who are going to be telling you to F off. You need to be building up resilience. So we don't really want to be throwing the social workers straight in because we know they're not going to be prepared. But that's scary though, to be honest with you, to find out in America that actually there's no kind of like an additional year that you have once you graduate
And
that
do
you're
you
not
have to have a
protected.
do you have to have a master's for that work?
So in the UK, so you can have a bachelor's, but you can also do a master's. So there's lots of social workers who do. So we have various programs. So you've got the bachelor's, and then you've got the master's program. You've got the frontline program and the step up program, for social workers to go on and to qualify. But they all have to do some form of protected year for them to be ready to go out there and take on those cases. But that's quite scary to hear that actually you guys just got thrown in.
And it's worse because we can even take bachelor's students and assign them the same duties.
So how does it? So can I ask, Catherine? So how does it work? So in terms of child protection services, because how does it work in terms of like your assessments? Because in the UK, for example, what we have like a MASH team. So whereby we get the referrals that come in from the, I'm talking as a children's social worker, the referrals may come in from the teachers or the police. The social workers will go out and do the visits. Is it the same in America? It's the same thing. How does it work?
Yeah, so that's my understanding, is that whenever anybody makes a CPS report, they're going to take it in on their hotline. And
Right.
then they're going to determine, like, is this something urgent? Do we have to send someone out in 24 hours? Or can
Mm,
this wait, however many days it is, like non-urgent, to have someone go out there? Or you can call and consult and say, like, hey, this is happening. I don't know if this is reportable or not. So
right.
whenever someone is questioning if they should report it, I just tell them, just consult, and it's up to them if they take it or not.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, right. So it's definitely pretty much the same. In terms of what you mentioned about burnout, how is it you managed burnout when you were practicing? Because it's something that myself and Rob really regularly talk about on the podcast, that a lot of social workers, Catherine, they really, really, really are really struggling. I think the pandemic, and I think all over the world really, has really impacted upon the social workers who are really struggling. So how do you manage burnout? You know, what strategies would you say that put in place to kind of make sure that you were 100% rested, you were managing your caseload? What actually worked for you? Because I do watch a lot of your reels and your episodes, and you're quite open about self-care, taking your time. What would you say? How did you manage it for yourself?
Well, I've done like a whole workshop on this. So I will give you
Yeah, I
the
know
brief
you have. Yeah, you
overview.
have. Yeah, yeah.
So I think it really starts one, recognizing how you're feeling. Like if you're feeling burnt
Mm,
out, if you're feeling that energy just lost, if you notice yourself just starting to isolate, not wanting to socialize, not wanting to do the things that you normally like to do. A big red flag is if you are like crying on a Monday morning because you have to go into work and you're just feeling
yeah,
like work is it just sucks everything out of you.
yeah.
And then it's like people like to think that self-care is something that you have to pay for, that takes a long time,
Mm,
or that is like I have to work for it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But it's really about just acknowledging the truth. Like, what do I need today? If I need to just come home and be by myself and like don't do anything, then that's okay. It's
Yeah,
easier said
yeah,
than done.
yeah.
But it's really about like having that awareness, one, and then two, implementing, like having the courage to implement what it is that you need,
No, I
right?
definitely agree with you. Yeah, I do agree with you. And I always try and encourage social work as well, that I think it's about kind of like, Catherine, putting yourself first as well, because social work is it's a very selfless role. It is. And being a manager, I think a lot of the social workers, that I've managed previously and also even currently, a lot of them like work on the weekends, and I say to them, like log off. Like you need to just log off and have some time
Yep.
for yourself. But many
Yep.
are like, Nana, I want to do my work. And it's like, but you can't, if you want to be able to give 100% to the families that you're working with, you have to be 100%.
Yep.
You
And it
need
can be
to.
dangerous if you're not.
I mean, what would you say was the most dangerous time that you had in your career? Because I remember at one stage where um I remember when I had COVID, actually, when I caught COVID during the pandemic. And Catherine, honestly, I was so sick. Like it actually went to my lungs, and I actually went into work, and my managers were saying to me, Nana, you know what, no, you can't come into work. I was like, no, I need to work on my cases. What is the most dangerous time for you you've had as a social worker? Like, what's your lowest point? I wanna kind of do some supervision with you right now and be kind of reflective. What's been your kind of like lowest point as a social worker, and what's been like your best point as a social worker in America?
Well, I think personally my lowest point was when I did get burnt out, because I just like had my blinders on. I didn't want to think that it would happen to me. I thought for some reason I'm like above this, like this doesn't happen to me. I just love my work. But it did, and it wasn't until I'm just like I like lost myself. I didn't even know who I was anymore. Like I didn't recognize who I was showing up as, because I used
Mm,
to be the girl who liked to have fun, who liked to laugh, who liked to go out with friends, who would like have fun with their coworkers. And then all of a sudden, over a period of like a couple months, it just turned into where I'm always irritable. Like my
Yeah.
relationships started suffering because nobody wanted to hang out with me. I'm like being mean and irritable. And then at work, I started getting in trouble. I couldn't keep up with my caseload. I started thinking man, I must not be a very good social worker. Like maybe I'm not cut out for this because I seem to be the only one that's struggling. And really just trying to do everything when like
Yeah.
these things were working at one time, but now my life had changed and it's not working anymore. And just being able to like acknowledge it's not working and I'm not being fully present with my clients. And this is dangerous because you could miss something,
Right.
right? Like it's real easy on a Friday afternoon when you're thinking about going home and someone's like, I just can't live anymore. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, do we go there? Do we
Yeah.
not? Like,
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
you
No,
know
no,
you need to
Catherine,
do
you're
an
right.
assessment, but like you're
No,
like,
no,
I don't have
no.
the energy.
No, I know what you mean, and I think for everybody who's going to be watching this, it's important that you take note of what Catherine is saying, because Catherine, like I think in there was a social worker actually that it was an article which I will share with you where the social worker wanted to was feeling suicidal because of just work really. And I, particularly in the UK, I always say that actually I don't think there's enough resources, or it's not talked about in terms of the mental health of social workers, the kind of stuff that we have to deal with, the kind of cases, the clients, and actually nobody's actually thinking about us per se in terms of how we're feeling. I don't think there's any safeguards in place for us. And I don't know if in the US, I mean, is there an outlet for social workers if they're saying that, you know what, actually, my mental health is off. I need some time, I need some space. Is there, have you got that resource there within all the services that you're working with?
It's very limited, which is another reason why I wanted to start the podcast. Because I'm like, I'm looking to these big organizations, and we got like three major social work organizations in the US. I'm not going to call them out, but none of them are taking care of the social workers. Like all of the things that they're working on was for the clients, but nobody's
Mm,
talking about like, how are we doing? Right? Like we're struggling, we're burnt out. And this was, before 2020, that we're already burnt out. And I'm just like, we have to have some sort of voice. Like we have to be having these conversations amongst ourselves,
yeah,
because if we're not good, our clients are not going to be good.
yeah,
And we're just contributing to that really terrible stereotype of like being a burnt out social worker.
yeah. And I want to ask Catherine as well, what are your unions like in America? So if, say, for, because one thing in the UK is that I think there's social workers are joined up to unions, but in terms of us having a voice, our voice is kind of very weak, and I think the government are not really hearing us. I mean, I've been trying a lot for months to get social workers to kind of have a voice. Are your unions very strong? So if you guys are saying, you know what, the caseloads are too high, we're not getting paid enough, do your unions back you to strike?
So, as far as I know, I am not aware of a specific social work union. We are usually grouped under other unions as
Right.
like nurses, teachers, etc. So that is one conversation that's been like ongoing, is
Yeah.
that we need a social work union. But to my knowledge, there is not a social work specific union. So we are forced to therefore either team up with the other professions like teachers and nurses, or kind of fend for ourselves. I mean, I hate
But
to say it like that, but that's
I
kind of
don't
true.
understand that, Catherine. How is it you don't have a union in the U? I don't understand that. How is it you haven't got a union um that represents you? There's got to be somebody that you've got. There's no union for social workers in the US. There's no unions at all for social workers in the US.
Not that I'm aware of. That we're pretty much just on our own. So like for instance, for me, I do private practice and
Yeah.
therapy, but never in my life have I been part of a union.
And that's quite sad to hear, to be honest with you, to know that it's just as bad for our colleagues in the US as it is for here. So that means it's like worldwide, um, there isn't any representation for us, to be honest. What is the government like with social workers? I mean, have you got a minister? I mean, I know within the UK we've got a health and social care minister, but in government, is there some form of representative that you have within your parliament for social work or any? There's got I'm very shocked, Kath. I'll be honest with you. I'm very shocked, you know. I didn't know it was this bad, you know.
You're really reaching here. I'm like, we have lobbyists, like, but those are going to be privately paid lobbyists. So unless the National Association of Social Workers, because those are our people, that's the only like big organization. But I'm not. Maybe they have a lobbyist, but I don't know. We have social workers that are like appointed to political office,
Right, okay.
but not specifically like, hey, I'm here repping the social workers. We don't have
Okay,
that.
right. Okay,
Not that I'm aware of.
yeah,
Maybe I'm
understood.
wrong, but
Understood. I do want to ask you a question, though. I mean to ask you, would you ever work in CPS? You wouldn't. What's the reason why? Actually, what's the reason why you wouldn't work in CPS?
I mean, I
Catherine,
can't
talk up the ting. Talk up the ting. Tell the truth, Catherine. It's fine, you know. Tell the truth. It's okay, you know. It's fine. It's okay, you know.
I can't think of why I would want
Yeah.
to.
No, but I'm saying, Catherine, but I mean, if it's tough, it's tough, you know. I mean, working in child protection, I think is very, very difficult. It is. You know, and I can't imagine what it's like in America. I mean, I've heard some stories that if you try and remove children, that if parents have like because of the gun laws, that you can't actually can a social worker in America remove a child without a court order?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I believe yes.
Okay.
I
Right.
believe so. But
Right.
it has to be serious. Like they have to believe that the child is in serious imminent danger.
Right. Okay. So for guys, yeah. So for people who are going to be watching this, yeah, just so you know, yeah, this is me. Like in the UK, a court judge has to be the one to ratify it. You see what Catherine's saying now in the US? If a child's at risk of harm, a social worker in the US does not need a court order to go and remove a child who's at significant risk of harm. Yeah. So that's in the US. So I'm just saying for people who are watching this, yeah, that for the UK, like we can't just walk in, but actually in the US, the thresholds and the legislation is a lot more different. Yeah. So you guys just need to just be aware of that. In it. I'm not coming for Catherine. It's just that Catherine, because in the UK, they're like, you guys can just come and take children away. And it's like, no, we can't. We have to go to court. But in America, it's different. So at least you guys just aware in terms of how social workers across the world practice. Me and Catherine do the same job, but the way in which you work, the policies, procedures is completely different. So I just want people just to be aware of that. What kind of responses, Catherine, have you had since you've done the podcast from social workers? Have you had social workers who've been resonating with you? Because I know there's a lot of the fellow social work podcasters that I link up with. They love you, you know. We love your content, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love your content, Catherine, because it's just very real and authentic. Have social workers across the country, have they reached out to you? Have they been like, Catherine, you know what? Everything you're talking about, we're feeling the way we're feeling.
Yeah, I've had social workers from all over the world reach out to me and say, thank you, because I thought I was the only one. I
Yeah.
thought it was just me. And it's been really amazing and kind of heartbreaking at the same time to see that these challenges are happening, you know, in the US, in the UK, in Australia, all over like India, Africa. I've had people reach out to me, right? And so these problems are happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to see. Like, I think we're all coming together now. And I like, we're all coming
Yeah.
together. And it's going to be a different world in 10 years because it's going to be people like you and I who are changing these narratives, having these different conversations, and really empowering whoever's listening to us. Be like, look, you don't have to stand for this. Like, you can have
Absolutely.
your, have your boundaries. You can demand more. This is how you negotiate. This is what to expect. This is industry standard. When before social media, all this was secret. Like, nobody would tell us what salary we're supposed to be getting.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is the thing, Gavin, because I say to a lot of people, and the reason why that I plug a lot of the work that you do, because going through university, there wasn't social work podcasts. So there wasn't anybody that I could, I think in the UK, there wasn't anybody that I could be like, oh, you know what? Right, you're really actually telling me the truth about when I qualify and when I get my degree, this is what I'm going to be dealing with. We didn't have that. It's only now that I'm seeing that there's social podcasts that are coming up. And I think the work that Catherine, you're doing is commendable. And it's actually really, really good to hear that there's social workers all over the world who are watching, who are seeing your platform. Like, you know what, actually, I'm going through this, because I think before, like, even for myself, going into university, although social workers would come in and talk about the experiences, it wasn't like what we're doing now, whereby, people have access to, yourself or someone like me or the other social work colleagues that are actually telling the truth about, you know what, this is what you're going to be dealing with. You're going to be going into homes, you're going to be experiencing burnout. There might be times whereby you might just want to call in the towel, you may not want to be a soldier, but it's all fine. So I think, Catherine, to be honest with you, what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And I have to just say, on behalf of like the UK social workers and everything, like, we really do appreciate the work that you're doing. Honestly, you're doing absolutely amazing work.
Well, thank you. I think you guys are doing amazing work over there. I mean, it's a team effort, right? Like, we all
No,
bring our voices
absolutely.
to the table, our
Absolutely,
stories.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to ask, Catherine, in terms of the social work degree in America, do you think it prepares social work students for becoming social workers in the US? The actual curriculum, does it prepare them thoroughly? And how long is the course?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yes. I'll put you on the spot. I told you I'm putting on the spot today. I need to go get everything and anything.
Yeah. So the main degrees is like your bachelor and your master's degree, and then every
Right,
state is kind of different with the licensing. A lot of programs, and there's some that are specific, but a lot of programs are generalist. So
right,
they'll teach you like clinical, a little bit of macro, but 80% of the social workers in the US go into a clinical route and they want to get their LCSW.
right.
And with that said, I think they adequately prepare us. It's just
Yeah,
not everybody gets the same education because we all those internships are different.
right.
And some people have a really great internship experience with a supportive supervisor. They get that one-on-one attention. And then other people on the other side, like, their supervisors aren't there. They're constantly having a high turnover rate. They're not getting the
Mm-hmm.
training that they need. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really is a mixed bag.
And for the degree, so your internship, that would be your placements, isn't it? Your placements.
Yes.
Right. So do the social work student, do they get to choose their placements? Do they get is it adults and children? Do they get to choose their placements? They get to choose their placements.
Like the way my college work is,
Yeah.
you could put in your preference.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
whether that's available or not is something different. So you can choose your preference, or you might just get stuck with whatever's available.
Right. Okay. Okay, then all right, then that's interesting, because in the UK, what we do is that the universities, yeah, you're right. We do our profile, put our preference. If we want to go into children, if we want to go into adults, and you have two placements. So you'll have your 70-day in your second year and then your 100-day in your third year. But in some universities right now, they're saying that they want students to have the opportunity to do 5 days of shadowing, so do 5 days shadowing experience in their first year, at least so they can get a taste of
Mhm.
what it's going to be like, in terms of on placement. So that's really, really good to hear that at least the program in the US and the UK is pretty much equivalent.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is your master's program, because I'm guessing you're talking about master's, is it a 3-year program? Is that standard?
So the bachelor's is 3 years, the master's is 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so the bachelor's is 3 years, the master's is 2 years, and I think the step up program is a condensed one. It's about 18 months.
Okay.
And so it's the front, so they cram it in quite quickly. But the front, so there's a lot of social work programs. There's a lot of social work programs that are there for people to go and qualify. So yeah, because we're trying to get as much social workers to come back into professional profit, because so many of us, Catherine, are leaving. I think, Catherine, what we're seeing, I don't know if you're seeing it in the US, but what we're seeing in the UK is that you've got the experienced ones who'll be like me and you, who are over 10 years qualified. We either senior practitioners or managers, and we're leaving. And then you've got the students who are up and coming, who are like new, but they're qualifying and they're like, shit, you know what, actually this is not for me anymore, actually no, it's too much. Or they don't stay in it for more than 5 years, or maybe stay in it for 2 years. So we're trying to get people to come into social work a bit more, because the turnover, Catherine, absolutely is diabolical, to be honest. And I'm probably sure that it's the same in the US, where loads of social workers are leaving.
Yes. And there was a study done by the NASW New York State, just looking at the social work and the salaries, and they found that a lot of social workers left after 5 years, or like, before the 5-year mark.
Yeah.
And then also too, like, you're not getting raises. A lot of people are just making like low money, and this is worse, especially for people of color, like Black and Hispanic people, that compared to the white social workers, like they're making even less money, and they got higher student loans.
Catherine, do you know what? That is going to be another episode. So guys, I'm just letting you know right now, yeah, we are going to talk about racial inequality in social work, yeah, because Catherine's just like, if we have a bit more time, Catherine, that is going to be another episode. Yes, I'm definitely having you back on. We need to talk about that.
Yes.
So no, that's a really, really important topic we need to talk about, because in the UK, actually, there's racial inequality within social work as well. But no, I'm definitely going to have you back on, Catherine, to talk about that, because what you've just said, I want you to hang on to that. That is actually very, very important for me to speak on. Before, Catherine, we wrap up, what is next for you? What is next for you?
So next up, I'm just working on my speaking engagements. I'm trying to do more mental health education, specifically around young adults, new professionals, college students. Also working on just growing the podcast, just letting people know that this information is out there, to have them share it, encourage people to listen and get connected. Excellent.
Catherine, I just want to say thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. Guys, this is our first cross world podcast. Catherine's are literally our first international social worker on the podcast. Yeah, guys, you need to follow Catherine. I'm telling you, like, you need to follow Catherine. So you're gonna see it. You see it there. You're gonna see it there. Catherine's handle. She's on Instagram. Catherine, you're on YouTube as well. You're on YouTube.
Yes.
You're on Instagram. You're on TikTok as well, isn't it?
Yes,
you're on TikTok, yeah? So guys, you need to like, subscribe, yeah? Listen to Catherine, honestly, yeah? Social Workers Worldwide. She's doing a fantastic job. She's representing social work all over the UK, Australia, the US, and other parts of the world, yeah? So guys, listen, just like, subscribe, and share. And you know where to find me and Rob. You like, subscribe, and share. But Catherine, again, thank you so much, yeah? And guys, listen, Catherine's coming on again, because listen, she dropped a banger just 5 minutes ago about racial inequality in the US in regards to social work here. So I'm not gonna let that slide. So Catherine, Catherine, you need to invite me onto your one. You know that. You gotta invite me on.
Yes, of course.
Honestly. So guys, you know where to find us, and we'll see you soon. Yeah?
Yep.
Take care, guys. Take care.